Intro music, soft cosmic-themed background music fades in and then out.
Welcome to Origins Unveiled, the podcast where we explore the mysteries of where we come from through the lenses of science and ancient stories. I'm Emma.
And I'm Lena. Today we're diving into one of the most iconic creation stories of all time, Genesis chapter 1, and comparing it with modern scientific theories, especially evolution. Ready, Emma?
Absolutely. I love how ancient texts and modern science sometimes echo each other in surprising ways. So, Genesis starts with, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." That's almost poetic, right?
Yeah. And it's fascinating because that description of a formless void, it kind of aligns with what science says about the universe before the Big Bang. A singularity, a point of infinite density and gravity, no form, no time, just nothingness.
Exactly. And then God said, "Let there be light." In the Bible, that's the first act of creation. And scientifically, it parallels the moment of the Big Bang, when light literally burst into existence for the first time. The universe went from complete darkness to being filled with energy and photons.
That's so cool. It's almost like Genesis poetically describes the universe's birth. And then on the second day, Genesis talks about a vault separating waters above from waters below, creating the sky. That sounds mystical, but scientifically, isn't that similar to the formation of Earth's atmosphere?
Exactly! Early Earth was covered in volcanic gases, and as it cooled, the atmosphere formed. It created a separation, oceans below, sky above. It's like two different perspectives on the same event.
Scene transition, brief musical interlude.
Moving on to day 3, Genesis says God gathered the waters, dry land appeared, and then vegetation sprouted. Science describes a similar timeline with the emergence of continents due to tectonic activity and the evolution of the first photosynthetic organisms.
Yes, those tiny cyanobacteria in ancient oceans were the first to photosynthesize, releasing oxygen into the atmosphere. It's the foundation for all plant life we see today, and Genesis beautifully simplifies it as "let the land produce vegetation."
Wow, I never thought about it that way. Then, on day 4, Genesis mentions the sun, moon, and stars appearing to separate day from night. Scientifically, that's about stellar formation. Our sun and other stars formed from cosmic dust and gas. The moon was created by a massive collision shaping Earth's orbit and seasons.
Right. It's like Genesis summarizes billions of years of cosmic evolution in one poetic line, "Let there be lights in the sky." But the order is a bit different from science since plants were mentioned before the sun. How do we reconcile that?
Maybe Genesis wasn't meant to be a scientific textbook. It's a poetic narrative, giving structure and meaning to creation. And maybe it reflected how ancient people observed the world, light and life before understanding the sun's role.
That makes sense. The narrative is more about purpose than process. I love that perspective.
Scene transition, gentle music playing briefly.
On day 5, Genesis talks about sea creatures and birds. Evolution shows us that life began in the oceans. The first vertebrates were fish, some of which adapted to land as amphibians. Then came reptiles, and from certain dinosaurs, birds evolved.
Exactly. Feathers were first used for warmth or display, and then they became useful for flight. It's incredible to think that birds are the modern descendants of certain dinosaur species, and Genesis groups them as creatures of the sky and sea, just in a poetic grand narrative.
And on day 6, Genesis describes land animals and humankind created in God's image. Evolution tells us about mammals evolving after dinosaurs, leading to primates and eventually Homo sapiens. It's this long journey of adaptation and intelligence.
It's interesting how Genesis says humans are made in the image of God, which could symbolize consciousness, creativity, and morality, traits that truly set humans apart. In evolution, our advanced brains, language, and culture make us unique among all species.
I love that connection. Genesis sees humans as special, and science explains how we evolved to be complex beings. It's like two different lenses showing the same beautiful picture.
And finally, day 7. God rests, blessing the seventh day. In science, we see Earth reaching ecological balance, cycles of life and death maintaining harmony. It's like the narrative pauses, appreciating the completeness of creation.
Exactly. It's a moment of reflection, just as scientists marvel at the delicate balance of ecosystems. And maybe Genesis invites us to do the same, to observe, appreciate, and respect this complex, interconnected world.
I really like how this conversation shows that Genesis and evolution don't have to contradict each other. They can be two ways of exploring the same truth, one poetic and meaningful, the other empirical and detailed.
Absolutely. Genesis gives us a narrative to understand purpose, while evolution shows us the process. And both together, they give us a fuller picture of our origins.
This was a mind-opening conversation. If you enjoyed this episode of Origins Unveiled, please subscribe, rate us, and share your thoughts. How do you see the relationship between Genesis and evolution?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. Drop your comments or questions and let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep exploring the mysteries of existence.